Well, hello all. I have another video here where I'm trying to do a little bit of modding, still in FarmSim 15. This is on the Glen Ellie map. I have a combine started here, and you'll notice I just started up a new save game just for some tests. I have a combine here with a header. I have several crops planted. It looks horribly messy, but it's only for testing purposes. Well, shoot, maybe it'd be a little bit easier to look at it in here. Uh, oh, I always forget maybe it's an I menu. Here we go. We'll get in here and take a look at this. So, yeah, it even as a color. So I have a little bit of sorghum here. You'll see that color. I have some oats. I have this purple soybeans over here. Have a little bit of sunflower down here. And what's this yellow? Or maybe, excuse me, the yellow is sunflower. What's this other color? Maybe wheat. And then kind of around the edge, if you will, I also have some cotton. Although, I don't see cotton on here. So makes me wonder if I have a little issue with it when it comes to multifruit. But be that as it may, anybody that remembers playing or modding maps in FarmSim 15, we've long had the ability to have multi-fruit capability. There are people gifted at writing scripts, and they've provided a means of putting these into the map. So I went ahead and did that with this particular map, which I really enjoy because I wanted some additional options in there. So I have those in here, but maybe some of you remember that while the game engine was pretty good at letting you insert new crops and what have you, it wasn't as good at the particle animation, if you will. So let me just crank this up, and I know anybody that's played this before, they will recognize what I'm referring to. So here we have a field of sorghum ahead here, field of ripe sorghum, so it should be ready to harvest. The combine can't harvest the cotton, so of course it isn't going to take it in. But I'm using a maize header, and as you'll see, you see a bunch of corn stalks coming in there because that's all that this particular header recognizes. It handles maize, and that is it. It doesn't know that it's another crop. I think subsequent versions of Farming Sim made this a little bit easier on the modder and made it so that it would pick up a proper particle animation for the headers. But in this version here, it, for whatever reason, just didn't. A guy could take the particular header. This is a capello. In this case here, however you pronounce it at. Oh, I got a rock right there. Good thing we didn't go any further forward. A guy could take the headers individually, and many did, and make them multi-fruit capable, and you basically would have to insert animation of all of this here into the headers so that it could handle it, plus any other crops that you wanted to have run through there. So I believe for this one here, well, and we could do one other one. I think somewhere here there's a field of yeah, just over there is a field of the sunflowers, and it will do the same thing. All it will show is the maize. But if you wanted to mod a header, you could. You could put sorghum in there. You could put sunflowers. You could put anything in there that you wanted. So this is frustrating. I know you can get those out there and you can do it. I wanted to see if there was a way to script it in so it would kind of do it automatically. And I kind of cobbled something up so that it would work. And we'll just get out of the game here. And I'll show you kind of what I did to get around it. So what we had the add multi-fruit mod in there, and I wanted to show a before and after effect. So what I did is I kind of hid some code that I worked on here. So I'm just going to put it back. I think this was one more. This coding here, let me save it, add multifruit. You may remember that there was two mods that you always had to have when you did multifruit, and I'm not going to go into how it was installed in the map, but you needed one, which was this one here, which added the new fruits to the sewing machines, to the cutters, to the mowers, whatever was necessary. This is the script that did it, and I've hidden a lot of that so you can't see it. And then there was another one that was specific to the map that said, okay, we're going to do some mapping. If you have a particular fruit, what other fruit that's already installed do you want to make it similar to? So in other words, if you installed oats, you might say, hey, everything that wheat has, apply it to oats. So if a trailer hauls wheat, then you know it will also haul oats. If a grain table header cutter would cut wheat, then you know it will also cut oats, and so forth. So you had the two pieces, but this one here was kind of the engine in there that would install it in all the bits of equipment and what have you. So I thought I would put it in here. And there's another script in here that shoves this add multi-fruit, I think pretty much into every single vehicle. Vehicle being trailer, cutter, combine, so forth. So what I had to do is I'm asking during the load process, you know, when it has the XML file open, to ask the question if this particular item that's being opened, if it has a cutter specialization. And if it does, then I want it to do the following. So, and really, it's not that much code, you know, that I put in here up here was a table that I had, and there's got to be a way to do this. I'm just not smart enough to do it. What I ended up doing was creating a table of cutters. There probably would be a way to somehow parse through whatever's existing. I just couldn't figure out a way to do it, so I identified every single one of them. So they're going to load each one of those up, or they're going to look for them within a cutter XML, which I have over here, and I'll describe this in a little bit more. But each cutter in here, like the Capello Quasar F4, that's the one that I was just using in game just a little bit ago. So it's going to open that, it's going to look for the particular cutter if it has that specialization, and then it's going to do some stuff to it. Namely, it's going to insert some additional cutter effects. And all I basically did was borrow some code out of what the Giants already had in the cutters and had it rerun, adding some additional cutter effects, if you will. And see, there's a table. This right here is a table for cutter effects, and this desk index means it's the particular fruit. So up in here, it's determining the fruit type for these cutter effects that we want to load. It's determining what index it is so that it knows that at any time this header is used to harvest that particular crop, whatever it is, then it will use the particular effects, you know, that we identify. So, I mean, there was a little bit of hoopla that I had to go through to put this in, but that's the basics of what's going on in here. And like I say, I have an XML file over here where I put all of these in, and really down to about here, I believe. These are all the in-game cutters, the ones that the Giants provide. I tried to pull out every single one of them, because no matter what I buy when I'm playing it, I want to make sure that it works, you know, on these multi-fruits whenever I you know, attach it or whatever and use them. Then these others represent a few mods that I put in. I'm kind of fond of those little old combines and what have you, so I got a few of those. Actually, the sample Rosenlut, that may be, I'm not sure which one that is. That may be one that the Giants have too. But anyway, I identified the mods that I have in the mod folder. that also I want to add these additional cutter effects. So as we just saw in game, I just attempted to harvest a little bit of sorghum, which I installed to the app, and that same header can also be used to handle the sunflowers. So in this cutter XML, which again gets called up in the script, I'm identifying additional cutter effects, if you will, for this particular header. Now, this particular header, this is the one that is in the main game files. I don't know if you can see up here. This is on the hard drive, the one that came with the game for Capello Quasar F4. This is the original, so it already has a cutter effect, and the only one in there is for maize, which of course we saw in game. We tried to harvest sorghum. We couldn't see the sorghum. We saw maize because this is the only thing that it knows how to do. So what I'm doing in here is adding additional cutter effects for both sunflower and sorghum. And all I did really was set these up the same way that this was set up. So, and I had to be careful a little bit, which we'll see here in a moment, on the nodes, because this is looking at the effect. And so I had to make sure I grab the right effect nodes. And you'll see as I come in here, it changes, from zeros to ones because there's more than one in there. But otherwise, it's set up just the same. The link nodes, and honestly, I don't know what a whole lot of this stuff does in here. It would take a whole lot of tinkering, and I would need some Lewis scripts probably to read to figure out what all this is. Suffice it to say, I just copied and pasted everything that was in the Giants version, so I could use it over here on this modification. So set up the two of them, and then here I identified a new location for where these effects are. If you look at the base game files, this over here, we're used to seeing the dollar data that's on the hard drive. The game knows where to look. Here's where you pick up the EFX. Well, and so what I did is I went on the hard drive and I grabbed this because I knew I was going to have to add something to it, or a second version, if you will. And of course, all it had in there was maize. So I stripped out the maize and I put sunflower and sorghum in there instead. And then I put them within the mod. So I have them in a directory sitting there. And I'll show it to you now, kind of what it looks like. So this is in the Giants editor. This is the Capello Quasar F4.i3D, and this holds the particle animation effect, if you will, or the cutter effects that we see, or that we want to see rather, with these particular crops. And as you can see, oh, that's moving quite quickly. As you can see, it has both sorghum in here, and it has this other one here, the sunflower. So they're in two pieces, and it's kind of like I've explained in some others. You look carefully at these indices over here to indicate how they get shown over here. I mean, this is where you identify the node. 0 is for sunflower, 1 is for sorghum. I'll just show that again. This is sunflower and sorghum. So you see the 0 and the 1 over here, and then the parts over here. Each part is specifically identified in the cutter effects in the XML. All of this, I mean, this is some of the ticklish area, the detailed nature of modding. It all has to work together. And if some part is broken, the mod may still work. It doesn't totally debilitate it, but it may not work the way you want to have it. And making all these shapes in here is above my pay grade, so I don't know how that works, but I think it's tied into animation. So you see kind of a string here, so your particle animation starts in one, and then it kind of does things, and you can even see it where it diminishes in size until it gets down to just little bits over here. And it's taking the texture file, which we'll see in a moment, and am manipulating it to put it in here. So I have both of them in here. I've called it up in the Cutter XML for this particular header, and I have this for many, many more. You just pick some of these others. This one here. This one adds soybean, oat, and moan. Moan is like, I think, poppy, I think. I'm not sure if that's German. I may not even be pronouncing it right. But I have this again and again in here, and frankly, it's kind of tedious putting it all in here. So maybe, like I say, there's a better way ultimately to do it. But this is how I got the job done for me. And then kind of over here, this is the i3D file. A guy could, with it in here, to replace what you see. Each one of these holds, like if you click on this, it has what's called the diffuse texture. This is the sunflower one. We could look down below and see the one for the sorghum. You could change it all in here, and you could call up a new file that you wanted and do it that way. To me, that seemed a little more cumbersome, so I know when I did this in mass for a lot of for a lot of cutters, I just opened the i3D file within the text editor, and I swapped out the 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 file names up here. If you look at the one on, this is a one on the hard drive up here with only maize, so you see exactly what files they're pulling, you see what shader they're pulling, and then you come in here and I swap it out and put it in there for sorghum and sunflower. I think I had to do a little bit of work on the first one. Obviously there's two in here, whereas the base game model only has maize. So I had to duplicate it. This really is the same animation effect that it's using for maize. So I would have copied the maize one in here and then deleted it out, or actually duplicated the maize. So I had two, and then I just did some renaming until I got what I want. And maybe that doesn't describe it the best. I don't know. I'm just trying to share kind of how I got it to work, even by just using these i3D files in a text editor. So got those in there, got the shader in there. Hopefully had all the pieces so that it would work in game. And let me go back here. I believe, yes, I think I have it all on, yeah, it should work now appropriately. Let's give it a try. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe before I do that, let me go to the texture. Let me first start here. This is the crop textures, if you will, or the foliage textures of the corn plant of maize. And you can kind of see the different phases. When it's just a little tiny plant growing, you got these here. When it gets a little bigger, you have it here. This is a taller stalk. And finally, when it's ready to harvest, it looks like this over here. And I believe these are what happen when it withers. Well, I honestly haven't a clue how this works in the header or in the game. All I know is the way the game is set up, it knows to grab here for when it's a tiny plant. It knows to grab this here and this over here for when it's bigger. And it knows to grab this down here when it's ready to harvest. So I said, okay, knowing that and knowing that these cutters, that's what they do, I said, let me set this one up to be for harvesting sunflowers to look kind of like this. So I took this same image and all I did was delete out the corn and I put in sunflower. See that? And it still has corn in here. But the thing of it is, for our header cutter, it will never use these other parts. Somehow, and maybe someone who knows can inform all of us, it's like there are certain regions of this particular texture that it knows to grab at certain times, and other regions it knows to stay out of. So that's kind of what I did here. And then I did it for for all the other fruits too. This is the texture files I use for oats, and this is set up very similarly to how the rape or the canola is set up. It's set up very similar for ashen, and the harvestable part is right here. And ditto with the poppies. Here it is for the sorghum, and then I have one more over here for soybeans. It's kind of all in the same place. And I did too have to adjust. I didn't create these texture files. I found them on the internet. Others made them. I did have to adjust some of the heights in here. You know, this here the flower is actually taller than when it's harvestable, and then withered comes in a little taller. That probably should be shorter yet, but these used to be just as tall as these flowers, and I kind of knocked them back, you know, a little bit, so it would fit a little bit better, and I'll show that kind of when we get into the game here. So why don't I crank that up, and we'll head in game and give it a look. And this time we'll have it implemented. Last time it was not implemented, so that's why we saw the maize texture when we were trying to harvest sorghum. And like I say, I believe the later versions of the game do a better job of incorporating this so that the modder has a little less work to do in implementing it. Let me just do a couple things here. Get that so I can kind of hide some HUDs. Oh yes, trusty sheep. I have several other mods installed. I have this in case I need it. Alright, here's our combine. Crank it up. And now this time, let's see if it gives us the right texture. Aha! Alright, I'm pleased. So this is the effect I was trying to get. Just the right height, and so that it looked the same as it was pulling crop into the harvester. And not perfect maybe, but I gotta say I'm pleased with the result. So, you know, I maybe should have had my HUDs. There it is. I got 261. Maybe what I'll do, I'm going to see if I can just head down here to the... And I got all these obstacles in the field because of this map that I'm working on here. Kind of get in the way of the harvest. Now let me see what it does this time. We'll see if it just goes over the top of it. Alright. So here we have it doing it again. And actually, you know what? It's poking those up pretty high in the air. So I'm wondering if what I need to do is knock down the height of the sunflowers as they head into the header, because those, as you can see, are above the height of the crop, and it doesn't seem like it should do that. So that's kind of a note I'll make for later. Anyway, now let's go try one of the other crops. I have another header sitting up here, and I probably have to empty this. It has just a small dab in there. So I'll get that emptied into a trailer up here. I will offload my... Okay, let me dump the header here. Let's go pick up the other one. And like I was mentioning before, these are both in-game headers. This is an in-game combine, or I say in-game, I mean Giants made. Came with the game. So now let's give it a try. We're going to come into the oats, and we didn't really look at this header, but there we go. I think that's exactly how we would want it to look. That is definitely oats coming in there. So maybe before I fill up, I'll just kind of pick them up here. We'll head on over here to the poppies and we'll see it, or excuse me, no, this looks like soybeans. So let's give this a go. And once again, you can see the soybeans coming in. You got soybean texture. And honestly, I don't like the curve of that kind of heading in. I wish it could like turn underneath, and I don't have the expertise to kind of do it that way, but at least it isn't the wheat texture. You know, I'll at least say that. So let me get out of there. I think I have one more to test, and oh yeah, it's down over here. Let's go see the poppies, and hopefully I haven't filled it too full that I'm not able to harvest here. All right, now let's give the poppies a try. And hopefully we'll see. Yep, there we see it. There's our animation of X, our cutter of X we want to see. Again, not perfect, but like I said earlier, better than seeing the wheat. So anyway, not really a very good solution, but hey, I had fun doing it. Now it's going to turn us into soybeans. Or not. No, I guess I had enough in there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This was just a little bit of some of the joys and pains of trying to mod and get something to look at least a little realistic. And not always easy to do, and sometimes you can't even try because there just isn't any workarounds. But I like to try so that at least visually, I don't know about you, but to me it helps preserve the immersion. There's always things that are going to break your immersion, you know, such as looking this way on the map and you see the background, you know it's fake. Well, of course, you know everything in here is fake. But when you can't see the background, like right here, everything looks normal as to where the machine is sitting. But the more things that you can make look like they make sense, then the better it is, in my opinion, of the playing experience. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.